Hello, welcome. My name is Manex Ibar. I'm a spiritual guide, guiding thousands of people into spirit consciousness, giving you tricks and tips to enhance your life and reach the highest peaking performance of your potential to offer your gifts to the world. So today we're going to talk about clairessence, clairvoyance, clairsentients, and all these terms that discuss the intuitive aspect of our lives. So clairvoyance is a term that is used a lot, and as a definition, let's bring in clairvoyance. What is clairvoyance? It's being able to see the unseen. It's basically somebody who's able to open their third eye, as it's known as, so that they can see ghosts and spirits and even flashes of the future, flashes of the past for different people and for themselves. Usually clairvoyance is for the other. Now, the difference between a psychic, which also sees, and a clairvoyant is that clairvoyant can be instructed and taught how to maneuver and even change and impact this other field that they see. So whether they are talking with the spirits and creating an interaction, creating links, creating unlinks, helping them move out of the house, out of the field, etc., there's a whole deep interaction that clairvoyant will have to do versus the psychic, which is just basically reading what's there. And a clairvoyant really is somebody who sees. It's a seer. It's somebody who can repeatedly and almost on call see. The CIA had a program that they called remote viewing, which basically used people and that were very clairvoyant to see places and things remotely. So from a distance, they were able to see things. And on top of it, what's really interesting is that they had a school for remote viewers so that you can really sharpen your skills. So they would take kids and people who were known clairvoyants or had these abilities, and then they would teach them how to really sharpen those abilities so that you could see through an envelope, you could see through across the world. I mean, they literally used them as spies to go see things, thousands of miles away into the Russian camps, for example. And, as the spy planes flew over, they would prove them right. So obviously, this can be very disturbing because at one point is it imagination versus real? And this is a very good question. The imagination and what the imagination does and what role it has in clairvoyance and even just the sixth sense is really an important topic to kind of cover, because imagination is a key to unlocking our sixth sense. And if you can't use your imagination, you're never going to be able to perceive the other side. I see the imagination as a box, as kind of like a little window machine, and it kind of creates this fluctuation, almost as if it's a mirror that's flipping and turning, and is able to take information from the other side and turn it and send it back into our brains, just like it is able to take things and reflections from our brain and throw it back to the other side. So it's almost like a spinning mirror that is just translating to a certain degree through visualization, through the imagination, different facts or different aspects of the different realities that our brain can actually tune into, which is a lot more than what meets the eye, to use that experience. But basically, then what our whole human spectrum is able to see, hear, feel, touch, taste, and smell. And we know this, just like Wi-Fi, it's flying around everywhere, and yet we don't feel it, don't see it, don't hear it, and yet it's there. And this is true with radio frequencies, TV, all sorts of things. The imagination is the key. It's kind of like the unlocking of your capacity to be able to see more, to feel more, to hear more. And so you have to get used to using your imagination and not having the mental mind that wants to analyze everything, I call it the analyzer, to take over and corrupt the imagination. You have to let this imaginative part of your brain work to interpret and to even see, feel, hear all this other information that's not so obvious. And it will create images. That is the imagination, is the images, the imagining of images, the creation of images coming from some source other than just internal source. It is also coming from the exterior, but just the unseen. That's one of the important aspects of opening up your clairvoyance. Now, there is a glandular piece to this. So what glands play with clairvoyance to open it up. It's the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. And they're both kind of masculine and feminine aspects to it. The pituitary gland is very much like the feminine. It's usually the typical third eye behind our forehead, even though it's not really located there. It's in the middle of the brain. But that's where the energetic field is, which kind of receives all this information. And it is that feminine, vague, open, round, and receptive energy that takes in this other realm. So the pineal gland, on the other hand, is more the masculine gland that is actually very much like an arousal, very erectile kind of gland, kind of rises and becomes erect when it's activated. And it receives this information also and can make sense of it. It brings in more meaning, and it is so important, the pineal gland. And unfortunately, most of us have this gland very calcified because we don't use it. I mean, this is really what visualization is, imagination is. This is what meditation helps us open back up. And fluoride, which we have in the water, which we have in our toothpaste, actually helps calcify it. It crystallizes it so that we can't use it, which is kind of something to be careful and aware of, because the pineal gland is very much what connects us to our higher selves, to our higher aspect of our spirit, our soul. And, I'm not going to debate this about the fact that we all have a soul and a spirit. This has been in all texts through all cultures forever. We are really more of an understanding of soul in a body, having a physical experience rather than anything else. We're not a body having a soul experience. And so the interplay between the pituitary gland and the pineal gland is really important. And there's the hypothalamus gland that's also inside there that's basically kind of playing a bit of a translator. And that's what's going to start acting up and giving controls to our whole hormonal system, which is quite amazing. So these glands do play with our hormones. And so, yes, we're going to feel more, and we're going to be able to communicate more. We're going to be able to, feel very much more vital when we are tuning in to our essence, our clairessence, our essence of seeing the other side, the invisible side. Now, there's different aspects like clairaudience. So what is clairaudience? Well, clairaudience is when we're able to hear the other side. And there's something that's really interesting is when people pop into the audio field perspective, there's this kind of almost white noise, like the radio fuzz, as you go and you pierce through to being able to hear spirits, being able to hear other frequencies of consciousness. And for some people, that's actually much more prevalent than their clairvoyance, since a lot of times, we have trauma around the clairvoyance. Clairaudience is something that's quite interesting, and so we're often very sensitive to sound, which is very difficult. And basically, there's an aspect to hearing which is quite interesting. When you hear a spirit tell you something, it's very physical almost. I mean, the clairvoyance is easier for us to understand, that you can see stuff that others can't. But hearing things is really on that borderline of craziness. And I think this is something that I wanted to talk about is, when you open up your sixth sense, you have this capacity of being a bit psychotic. I mean, if the psychotic definition is about somebody who kind of gets lost in hearing other voices and being disassociative from the real life, well, most clairsentient beings or clairessence awakened beings have the capacity to see what others don't, hear what others don't, feel what others don't. And if the only difference between a psychotic person and a clairessent person is that the psychotic person is incoherent in this reality, right? So it's either somebody who's not trained with their natural gift that has awakened, in a sense, early, and that most people rejected that person for their gifts, versus somebody who hears voices and spirits but is able to stay coherent in this reality to be able to share that information with the other. Then that becomes an extraordinary person. It's quite interesting. And obviously shamans have this capacity, have this ability, and in an indigenous culture, this was very much regarded as a bonus or as a gift. And it was brought into, the person that had this gift was brought into training and then was, honored and revered as a very important player or person in the community that could give advice on whether they were a seer or somebody who could hear. And then, of course, the clairsentient. What is a clairsentient? A clairsentient is somebody who can feel spirits, can feel things that are out, can feel energy through the body. It's almost that kinesthetic aspect of being able to feel the other levels of existence. And oftentimes that's a lot of healers, especially, people who work with their hands, whether it's a chiropractor, osteopath, or magnetizer, or energy healer. They're going to be able to move with their hands and play with this other energy, this other dimension in a way. And most people still have the clairsentient skills opened, and that's one of the first things that people will feel is the energy within their hands, the chi that's moving through. And then, they'll feel things, but they won't be able to see it. So that's it. Thanks for listening. If you want to go and explore this course, it is on clairessence-meditations.teachable.com or clairescencemeditations.com, or you can find it also on my site, which is manexibar.com, MANEXIBAR.com. And otherwise, enjoy wherever you are. Your present moment, the gift of presence, is always available. Can you find the gift and smile at the changing of time and life? What is life bringing to you? Thanks for listening. I look forward to speaking again to you and hopefully inspiring you into spirit consciousness. Bye for now.